Hello everybody and welcome to this highlight show of the last day of the Blitz action in the Grand Chess Tour event in Paris. So day number 4, 9 games of Blitz chess, a lot of actions, let's have a look. So I'm gonna focus on the games of the two leaders, and they pretty much dominated the whole event. Hikaru Nakamura and Magnus Carlsen, so we're especially gonna focus on these two guys. Let's start with round number 10, and Magnus Carlsen was playing against Wesley So with the black pieces, and So had a good game and was better most of the game, but here he went wrong. He should play a move like Bishop e7, which already looks a little bit curious, and White is still a little better, but still the position remains difficult. Most of the white advantage is already gone. So thought he had spotted a winning move here, and actually the last moves he had played, he had also played because he wanted to get into this position, and then as it happens in Blitz, you miss something and suddenly it's all over. Queen d7 looks like a winning move, double attack, rook and bishop, but black is a beautiful combination here, and if you want to right now, you can stop the video and try to figure it out yourself. Okay, so what can black do? Not much to do. Queen takes d1 is possible, and so immediately resigned because after bishop takes d1, while king g2 runs into mate, of course. And after bishop takes d1, the rook comes down, king g2 and bishop f1. If the king goes back, then simply bishop h3 checkmate. And the problem is after king f3 there's a fork, knight e5 check, and picks up the queen, blacks up a whole rook, that's over. So good start for Magnus Carlsen. Off we go to round number 11. And here Carlsen was playing against Caruana once again with the black pieces, and Caruana had put on a good game and is clearly better here, but Carlsen made it a little bit too easy. And of course we have to remember, guys, this is Blitz. They were always down to 20 seconds, less than that, so a lot of mistakes were made, which made it a lot more fun for us guys to watch, because it shows after all these guys, well, they also make plenty of mistakes, especially if they're under time pressure. Here Carlsen played knight h4, just allowing queen takes f7, followed by queen takes g7 checkmate. Instead, black could have hung on with the exchange sacrifice, the necessary exchange sacrifice, rook takes e5. The rook has to take, because otherwise queen takes h3 checkmate after queen takes e5. And now in this endgame, in fact, black still has some hopes. It's not that easy to convert for white because black has some chances and some play here. Alright. And we go to, let's see which round this is. This is round number 13, and we're going to take a look at Hikaru's finish here against Vladimir Kramnik. Kramnik had a terrible day. He made 1 out of 9, and he gave away a lot of good positions, or at least equal positions. Here it's Kramnik to move with white, and he played a move bishop g3, which just loses, and said queen e3 would have defended, and this game should have ended in a perpetual or in a draw in some way. But after bishop g3, now bishop d5, and well, white cannot defend against this checkmate threat. It's quite unfortunate. White gave a couple of checks, but just didn't change anything. Check, check, queen check here, check back, but king just retreats to h7. No more checks to be given, and Kramnik had to resign. Nakamura took the point here. In the same round, Aronian was playing against Carlsen, and Aronian had sacrificed some pawns for activity. You can see all the white pieces are active here. White played king f7, threatening the knight on g8, and indeed black had only one defending move. And if you're playing with so little time on the clock, of course, it's easy to miss only moves, and that's what Carlsen did here. Played rook b3 instead. Rook d3 was necessary to take control of the d7 square. Now if rook takes g8, then in fact black is winning here, because in this variation the a3 pawn is unstoppable and is going to queen. So white would need to, for example, give a perpetual here, because knight e6, now black could simply defend with rook d7 against rook takes g8, and black is holding on. But after rook b3, the problem here is that now here, after giving some checks, getting some time on the clock, now knight d7 is possible. That's why rook d3 was necessary. And well, now black's just losing the knight on g8. Check, check, and king goes to g6. Everything is protected. White is up a knight, and after a3, now just rook h7 check, because here the rook is dropping on b7 and white is given checkmate next move. So Carlsen resigned after rook h7. Now we go into the next round, round number 14, and we see another Kramnik game. And here, well, the white position is already comfortable. It's black to move. Black has to play rook a8 to protect the pawn on a5, and white is just up a pawn and obviously has a very good winning chance, but black can still fight. Instead, however, Kramnik played c4 and just neglected the threat to his rook. And the rook was gone. And Kramnik resigned, of course. That's what I was talking about, a lot of blunders. I mean, this is even unusual for Blitz, of course, to blunder your rook in one move. But it just happens. In the same round, Nakamura was playing against Giri, and in fact, a lot of the games here in this tournament by Nakamura reminded me of Carlsen, because he always squeezed out endgames with a tiny advantage and tried as long as he could, and then more often than not, got a win. Here we have this rook endgame. White is very active, and now played rook f1. In fact, this is not the winning continuation, but these rook endgames so tricky, even with only 2 pawns on each side. Rook d6 first was better, and the whole point is that it forced the king to f7, because black doesn't have a lot of other moves to play. And now, for example, I was just thinking rook f7. Now white can play this plan of bringing the rook to a1 or to c1 and then to c7. And if the rook now moves, then white can give a check here. And pick up the pawn on b7. So king f7, now rook d2, or rook can go anywhere really, and we see this variation here. And the whole difference is, compared to the game, what we're going to see in a second, is that here black would like to play rook f5 and then give checks from the side, but then the king on f7 is misplaced. And if black tries to do it from here, now the king can just go to d5 and black has no more checks. And black is not going to be quick enough here with his counterplay. So let's see what happened in the game. Rook f1, rook e5, rook a1 takes, king takes b7, rook b5 check. And this is what I was talking about. Here, Giri had the chance to draw with rook f5, which is hard to see, of course. The point is that now black can give a bunch of checks, and white has to retreat, because otherwise if the king goes forward, just the checks are coming, right? There's no escape, so the king has to retreat to all the way to e4. Now rook f8. Now the rook goes behind, and in this situation, it's the same position as in the game. Actually, we'll see exactly his position in the game, but here's black to move, plays g5, and black is in time here to draw this, because the white king is too far away. If we compare this to the game, it's, like I said, almost the exact same situation, this position, but now it's white to move, and white brings back the king and wins easily. Check. Here, this is the last, this is an important point, not to play, or rather here maybe, not to play rook a2, which looks like just picking up the pawn, because now suddenly it's a draw after king h1. White cannot take the pawn due to stalemate. But instead, here white just plays king f2. And now just picks up the pawn this way, and, well, there's no stalemate, and white just wins. So, nice rook endgame win for Nakamura, even though Giri had the chance to save this, but like I said, very difficult to find. But I just want to show you these subtleties in the rook endgame. Off we go to round number, let's see, which round is this? Round number 16. Nakamura against Freycinet, and once again squeezing out a win here in a originally equal knight endgame. Here after h takes g5, Freycinet played e5 check, and this loses. Black should take back, and the point is that here, if white plays like he did in the game, now black can activate the king and gets sufficient counterplay. Also knight d3, then knight d7, and black has ideas here to create counterplay and to equalize. Of course, in a blitz game, not easy, but it was possible after e5 check here. It's very simple for white, just picking up the pawn on a4, and Nakamura went on to win this one effortlessly. And one more game I want to show you guys from round number 17. That was just incredible. It was the game between Freycinet and Carlsen, and Freycinet is just completely winning here. White could get a queen with a8 and be a rook up. Maybe still be a little bit careful with the black pawns on the king side, but honestly this shouldn't be a big deal. But even simpler than that is simply to play bishop c8, and there's nothing stopping white from just queening here, just being a full queen up. Like I said, it was a blitz game, of course, and people were probably very short on time. So Freycinet chose rook c8, and now it's becoming a little bit less unclear. Still white is winning here, but it's less clear now. So we're gonna fast forward to this position. Clearly Freycinet has bungled it. No way to win anymore, but there was at least a chance to not lose. In this position after king g1, in fact black won. Here bishop e6 was the necessary move to save the game, because now after h2 white goes back to d5, and then king e3, king g2, and black cannot make any progress. f3 just takes, h1 queen, king takes f3, and king g1, and this is going to end in a draw. However, in the game after king g1, king e3, c5, f3, c6, f2, king f1, g2, takes. Well, here Freycinet resigned because after king takes g2, king e2, c7, black is queening with check, and of course will then just stop the pawn and win. So a miraculous turnaround for Carlsen here, but in the end it didn't help him. He lost too many games. In fact, on this day, day number 4 of the second blitz day, he made only 50%, 4.5 out of 9, while Nakamura also didn't have the greatest day. He made 5 points, but he already went into the last round winning the tournament already. He lost in the last round against Carlsen, but he probably just didn't care, really. Well, it's Nakamura, so he probably still cared, but not as much because he was already the winner of the tournament. So really, it came down here to Carlsen not putting up the performance he had put up in the last 3 days. He even wrote on Twitter, a typical meltdown on day 4, at least happy to get the 2nd place. So he just wasn't able to bring to the table what he was able to bring the last 3 days, and Nakamura played more solid and decent chess and overall took a deserved win here in Paris. Alright, you guys, the Grand Chess Tour is going to continue soon, June 17th, with the next event. It's called Your Next Move. It's in Belgium and Leuven, I believe. So the action is soon going to continue. They're going to do exact same thing again, but with slightly different players. Most of them are going to be the same, but some changes here and there. Alright, I hope you enjoyed this highlight show, and I'll see you again soon. Goodbye.